Hey guys, welcome back. So, what is your favorite classic military handgun? Well, a lot of you may actually answer that question by saying the Browning Hipower. And I would agree with you. It's a classic military handgun. One of the best designs. John Browning worked on it, but he had some assistance from Dieudonné from FN in Belgium. But the handgun is a classic Browning design that people absolutely love. And it's an evolution from the 1911. More ergonomic, chambers 9mm, still single action trigger pull, very small, lightweight, ergonomic handgun. And again, it saw pretty wide acceptance during the Cold War. Now, the gun has come and gone from the US market. Fairly recently, FN decided to stop production of the Hipower. It caused everybody to get all up in arms because people were slowly not buying them. The market had kind of petered out. Things have been on the market for decades. And so FN just canceled the product line. Well, people want what they can't have, and everybody started clamoring for Hipowers again. And that started companies bringing in Turkish clones and clones from other places around the globe, clones from companies like TSOS and Girsan and other places. And also, Springfield Armory introduced, after FN announced the cessation of the production of the FN Hipower, even Springfield Armory jumped in the game with this handgun that they brought to market just recently. Well, FN put the gun back into production, but they made some changes to it, and some people either love or hate the new Hipower design. We've done a video on it. But there are other handguns out there that people gravitate towards, Hipowers that are modified. There's a Nighthawk custom Hipower I've seen out there, and it's an absolutely beautiful handgun. Has some really nice modifications done to it, but it also carries a Nighthawk price tag, which is thousands of dollars. So what if you wanted a Hipower, you didn't want to send it out and wait a year or two for a custom shop to modify it, but you wanted all the cool little upgrades that would make it a semi-custom or a custom handgun, but you didn't want to break the bank, right? Tall order. Well, there is such a handgun, and it's in this box, and that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. This gun I paid right around 820 bucks online for, and I'm going to tell you whether or not I think it's worth the money. So let's dive into today's video, take a closer look at a modified or custom Browning Hipower that is made by Girsan and imported by EAA. A lot of folks ask me, how can I get involved in the firearms business in that particular community? And one of the best ways to do that is to become a gunsmith. Every gunsmith I know is just overbooked with work. It's a very good living. And so if you would like to become a gunsmith, you need to go to a gunsmithing school or become an apprentice for an existing gunsmith. But Modern Gun School is an accredited college that also works with veterans in the GI Bill, where you can go and get a degree from accredited college in gunsmithing and then go out and start your own gunsmithing business, which I think is a really great option. Again, throughout my entire life, gunsmiths have always been able to earn a really good living, assuming they have a really strong work ethic. So please check out Modern Gun School. I do have a link in the video description below. So enter the Girsan P35 OPS handgun. Right here in this case, Girsan is in Turkey, and this is the handgun we want to talk about today. Now, the gun as you see it here is configured like this from the factory, and this is how it ships, including with the red dot sight. Now, there's other versions of the gun that does not have a red dot sight, but I wanted to fire a Hipower with red dot sight on it because I've never done it before. And so this handgun has some pretty interesting modifications done to it, and we'll talk about that as compared to the other Hipowers that we have out here this afternoon. The classic Hipower, we'll just talk about the TSOS here. The classic Hipower has a few flaws. So first of all, there's no easy way to mount optics to it. That's something that the OPS seeks to change. Also, the standard Hipower, it has this nasty tendency to bite the hand of the shooter. The hammer overhangs the back of the frame by a considerable amount. So when the gun fires, that can come back and pinch you, especially if you have really meaty hands. And then there's no accessory rail out here for mounting lights and things like that to the handgun if you want to use it in a defensive capacity. Also, the standard Hipower will not have an ambi safety on it. So here is the OPS pistol. So we'll start off down here and just kind of work our way around the handgun. First of all, it uses a standard Browning Hipower magazine. This one is a modern magazine. The traditional Hipower will hold 13 rounds. This one holds 15 rounds. Has G10 grips on it. And you'll notice that it has a nice large magazine release. Magazine drops free. Over here, we have those G10 grips. We have the extended beaver tail out here that keeps that hammer away from the shooter's skin. That's going to be a very welcomed addition to the gun. Then we have the manual safety, and as you can see next to the original design, it's enlarged to make it easier to get to. And they've also included an ambi safety, which is also large. So it extends out there, makes it easy for you to get up there and get with your thumb. Now, one thing that they haven't done, because it's not built in like the 1911, there's no real detent in here. So it's just kind of, it clicks a little bit, but it's not very positive. But that's standard for high powers. Then we have a modified slide stop slide release. It's extended back just a little bit and reprofiled. Of course, we have the red dot sight that's mounted up here on top of the slide. The sight does come with the gun. Yeah, it's a no-name red dot sight. I'm not sure what the whole pattern is. I want to find out, because I don't think that this red dot sight will last very long, but I hope I'm wrong. And then come over here, and we have a really nice trigger. This thing actually feels really good. So the standard high power trigger is a U-shaped trigger that you can get your finger into. This is more of a flat face trigger that causes your finger to ride down towards the bottom of the trigger, which gives you mechanical advantage on the trigger. And then out here, we have a dust cover that has a 1913 rail slots on it. So you can see that compared to the original design. And it would have high-vis sights, but within 40 rounds, my high-vis insert fell out of my front sight. Not a good sign. Hopefully I can get that replaced. But everything else is pretty much the same. You have the same external extractor, all that good stuff. And the grip profile has been changed a wee bit. So we not only have this extended beaver tail out here, but you'll notice there's a little lip that kicks out right here at the bottom of the grip. But even with my large hands, that works pretty good. It doesn't interfere with my grip at all. And there's a slight bevel, not much, to the magazine well. The next question you guys are going to have is, does the gun have a magazine safety? And it does not. It has been removed. The standard high power has a magazine safety in there that if the magazine's not in it, you remove the mag, the gun cannot fire. So that's been removed, and a lot of people want that removed. So the gun retails for $820. So let's do some shooting with it, take it apart, take a look on the inside, and see what type of quality this thing is. We already know that the front sight is a hot mess. Like I said, hopefully I can get that replaced. Let's take it apart really quick and show you how that's done. So we're going to drop the magazine out first. We'll make sure that the weapon is empty. And then with the high power, you're going to pull the slide to the rear. You'll notice there's two notches here. This is your safety notch, and this is your takedown notch. So I'm going to push the slide to the rear, push the safety up, and hold that slide rearward. Now you have a dimple right here, which is a cross pin that holds your slide stop slide release. I'm going to push across on that with my finger. I generally push this up and then push across with this, and then that pin will just come right out. Now the slide is under spring pressure, so hold it back, release that safety lever, and then the slide will ride forward off the frame. This is an all steel frame, fairly substantial, nice and heavy. Here we have traditional Browning high power fare. Nothing really changed here much at all, unlike the reintroduced FN pistol. They changed a number of the parts. These look like standard military parts. There's your standard military guide rod, recoil spring, and barrel. So it's interesting to note that the machining looks really good. I would say the finish looks like a Cerakote type finish. Nice and evenly applied. No real machine marks. Barrel looks good. You see it's cut for the magazine safety. It's just absent, which again is something I like. I never cared much for the magazine safeties. So yeah, put it back together, just reverse the process. And that's it. You're right, that trigger's awful. When you get the OPS pistol, it'll come in this plastic box. Inside you'll have a rather, I don't know, cheap sight adjustment tool. You put your flathead screwdriver through this dial, and then you use that to make adjustments. Instead of marking the actual sight, you have this big dial that tells you up, down, left, right. I don't know, just not very impressive. This is the owner's manual to the gun. This is the owner's manual to the red dot sight. In the owner's manual to the red dot sight, it says there are two versions. It says there's a 4 MOA dot version, which I believe this is, that has an RMSC footprint. Then they have a 6 MOA version. The owner's manual says that it has a RMR footprint. Why two different footprints? I don't know. Again, this particular red dot sight's not something I would trust my life to. Never heard of the brand name. Given the adjustments, things like that, a bit quirky. I would replace it if I was considering serious use for this handgun. Also, the sight came loose while we were shooting it right out of the factory. It does have Loctite on the screws, but they walked out after less than 100 rounds, and the sight started going on and off intermittently when I was shooting it. I was tapping it, trying to figure out what was going on. Then after I finished the string, I wiggled the sight, realized the screws were loose. I also had that front sight fiber optic filament fall out of the front sight. Not something I would expect on an $800 handgun, but it is what it is. I'll see if I can't get that replaced. The only other thing that I would really ding the gun for, two things. The trigger on this is typical high power trigger. By that I mean you really don't have much feedback in terms of reset. You don't hear anything, you don't really feel anything. And it's no different with this handgun. They didn't improve the trigger in any way, so you could be shooting very quickly. You won't feel the reset. You don't know if the trigger's reset or not, and you'll go to pull it again and have a dead trigger. You may think the gun malfunctioned, but you just need to release the trigger all the way, pull it again. So that's just a quirk of the high powers in general. I just wish they would have improved the trigger a little bit when they were modifying it. Also, we took a whole bunch of lights I have on hand and we tried to mount them to the dust cover of this gun. And the only one that'll fit is this little Enforce, because its bar is far enough back and it's short enough distance from this T-bar to the switches that it will clip on. But as you can see, part of it will miss the rail, so it's less than ideal. That rail really needs to be one more slot out. The other larger lights simply won't fit. They all want to engage a slot that doesn't exist out here because it's just further out and they're longer bodied. So if you butt it up against the trigger guard, it won't make this slot, so you have to push it further out, and there isn't anything for it to lock into. That's true of the X300 too. So I wish they would have thought that out a little bit better, but yeah. So what do I think of the gun? 820 bucks. These things are hard to find. I've been looking for this thing all over the internet, finally found one in stock and ordered it. So people are buying them up. It looks sharp. It looks like a custom high power. But is it? Well, certainly it has elements of customization, the red dot sight, the enlarged controls. I will say that with the slide stop slide release, when shooting it, because they've moved this back, my large hands, my thumb wants to sit right there when I'm shooting, so I will not get the slide locking open half of the time because my thumb keeps hitting it. With the standard slide stop, it's a little bit further forward, and I don't typically hit it with my thumb on a standard high power. So that isn't a modification that works well for me. For other people, it'll work great. The G10 grips look really good. Finish is nice, all that stuff. The gun seems to work just fine. It's just, I would expect a little bit more quality for that $800 price tag. I would expect a slightly better red dot sight, or at least the option for a slightly better red dot sight. And there's just a few things I would change. So I do like the change to the profile of the grip, and I do like the change of the profile to the beaver tail. So those are definite improvements. The high power in general is just not a handgun that I would choose as my primary defensive handgun. There's so many better handguns out there, modern handguns. Nothing wrong with it, but it's just not real high on my list for a number of reasons. Ergonomically, it's just not a handgun that fits my hand very well. Recoil-wise, he's a little bit more punchy than more contemporary designs and newer designs. So all that considered, there are people out there that love them. I don't like carrying these cocked and locked because they don't have a very positive safety on them. And so you'll find people that carry them will do the Israeli method of carry, which is to carry a loaded magazine, nothing in the chamber, a method of carry I don't subscribe to. So they're just things about the Hipower in general that pushes it way down that list for concealed carry in terms of a range gun, fun gun, good gun to look at. Very interesting. 800 bucks, is it worth it? Only you can decide. I've shown you all the positives and negatives I found about the handgun, and you decide if you want one or not, if you can find one. All right, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. If you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms Channel, the best way to do that is become part of our Patreon family. There's a link in the video description below. Also, right here on YouTube, you get a little thanks button and a join button underneath the video player you're watching right now. You can mash either one of those and support us right here on YouTube in the age of demonetization. Also, please swing by and check out Copper Custom. Thank you for 15 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.